Hello folks and welcome to the show here as usual with Richie Power and Ciaran Carey. It's a week and a half on from the All-Ireland, Ciaran. Have you stopped celebrating down in Limerick yet?
No, Shane, every day they appear to be cranking it up a few notches. I suppose the celebrations are good, and I suppose, yeah, they're right to do it in accordance to what they achieved. You know, the three in a row, Shane, are pretty rare, and, you know, they're celebrating actually in every club, really. But it's been done as you know, no different to the last one's been done in a very mature, respectable fashion. So yeah, and long may it continue. Well done to them.
And did you get a chance to catch up with any of your Patrickswell club mates or any of the other players?
Funny enough, I was at a local funeral last night, and actually I met John Kiley after it, and we had a great chat there for about 20 minutes. And you know, I looked a bit tired, looked a bit exhausted, smile on the face all the time. But you know, it was a good old farm. Yeah, I was in touch with Keane and over the moon in good old Fettle. I texted the boys, but you know, I kind of let him alone. They're kind of gone to ground on their own little celebration, so you have to give them a chance to come up for a bit of air. But when they come up for a bit of air, I'll be there to meet them, all right.
And did you get any interesting insights off John Kiley, or were we all playing it cool?
I know. I was listening. John knows my old farm. You know, in that type of a scenario, you know, there's no games and you're shooting from the hips. And, you know, I just made the point, you know, all the All-Irelands were pretty special. And I suppose what we did to Waterford and Cork isn't a done thing. Usually All-Ireland finals go to the bitter end and there's usually a point or 2 or 3 points in it. And I just said, I suppose, what I said really, that win last Sunday week was probably the greatest win of the four.
And Richie, you've obviously had that same amount of time as well to reflect on it. Now at this point, like, has any of your opinions that we had from last week changed in terms of where Kilkenny at and where they're going? Obviously now, in light of Brian Cody moving on.
To be honest, I suppose, to be honest, Shane, they have kind of, you know, and I've done a lot of thinking about over the last kind of week and a half. And I suppose we spoke about last week with regards to the middle third of the field, out of the 8 positions. Like, Kilkenny were wiped in 7 out of the 8 positions. I was talking to someone the other day and I kind of asked him a question. I said, how many Kilkenny hurlers would you pick out from last Sunday that hurled well? He named 3, and the same 3 that I named. And to give Limerick the start that we gave him, and to still be only 2 points behind at the final whistle, like, that has to be, you know, there in itself are positives. Because, like, I'm the first to admit that this Limerick team is special, and they deserve all the success that they've had. But, like, from a Kilkenny point of view, to say that you know, you'd be wiped out of 7 out of the 8 main positions on the field. 3 of your players probably would be happy coming off the field, having performed, and to still be in with a shout at the final whistle. You know, I think that in itself has to be a huge positive going forward. And to maybe look at that as well, and to see how we can maybe, you know, fix those problems. Maybe a couple of positional changes, and you know, probably hopefully try and find a few new players during the club championship over the next couple of weeks.
It was interesting on Saturday when it was announced that Brian Cody was leaving. I was at a wedding of a Kilkenny man from Pilltown. This was down in Wicklow, and the lad beside me shows me his phone saying Brian Cody has gone. So then I'm there trying to enjoy, you know, the special day of this, you know, couple, but at the same time I'm tweeting, updating all the OurGame platforms about it. So there was still a bit of surprise from me, even though there'd been so much rumor. Richie, were you still surprised when it came through?
I was surprised, I suppose, in the manner in which it came through, Shane. Like, look, the rumours were rampant in Kilkenny and all over the country from the Tuesday after the All-Ireland. I was expecting the announcement on the Wednesday. It didn't come. Expecting it Thursday, it didn't come. And then you're kind of, the back of your mind, you're kind of saying, is this announcement going to come at all? And then it comes out through the county board Saturday. And I believe that's where it's going to stay. And I believe, you know, I don't think Brian is going to give interviews. I don't think he's going to make any statements himself. I think he's happy enough to maybe just, you know, walk off into the sunset and let that be that. And do you know what? He deserves that much as well, you know, to be kind of, I suppose, left alone and not to be kind of hounded for interviews and stuff like that. So, yeah, look, it was a shock. And I suppose it straight away turns to who's going to be the next manager. You know, what names are being thrown around and what names are in the melting pot. So, you know, look, I'd expect an announcement to be made probably next week. Because to be fair to the new man going in, he needs to hit the ground running, I suppose. And as I said, the club championship is starting in Kilkenny this weekend. I'm sure who's going into the position probably is aware of it at this moment in time, so he'll be putting his plan into action already. But, you know, look, I'd expect an announcement next week. And to be honest with you, I haven't heard anything. Obviously, Derek Lyng is probably the front runner, as we've been kind of hearing in the media and whatever else. But yeah, I suppose, look, in a way, it's the end of an era, obviously, but it's exciting times ahead as well. You know, a new man, new ideas, freshness. I suppose new management team as well, and it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Okay, and we're seeing here from Flash, has there been any indications who might be leading the race? So obviously you're saying you're not sure, but when you speak about Derek Lyng, can you just tell us your thoughts on him? Obviously All-Ireland under-20 manager this year, but you would have shared a dressing room with him and probably heard him talk in front of the dressing room at times. How do you think he'd go if he was manager?
Oh, listen, look, I've unbelievable time for Derek, and you know, as you said, I shared a dressing room with Derek, and you know, anytime he spoke in a dressing room, and I suppose when Derek was hurling, he wasn't a big talker. You know, he preferred to probably do his talking on the field, and he'd done that. You know, he'd done that kind of 9 times out of 10. So, but I've heard great things about him. You know, my own club man Michael Rice was involved with him in the under-20s, and I suppose, look, he probably got off to a rough kind of start with the 20s, the first 2 seasons there. They didn't perform, you know, really, and then obviously coming this year with the run that they came on to get over the line. So, you know, look, I suppose, as I said, he's the front runner at the moment. There's other names being touted. You know, DJ's name is in the pot, Eddie Brennan. Obviously Henry was going to come into the equation once Brian stepped away. But I don't see that happening. But look, I think whoever's brought in, Shane, has to be given time. You know, I was speaking to a tip man during the week, and we were talking about the same thing with regards to giving them time, and that's exactly what needs to happen. You know, he needs to be brought in, given time to put his own stamp on it. And I think the big challenge the new man coming in is going to have is hanging on to some of the senior players. I think that's probably going to be the big challenge, and that we'll just have to wait and see what happens on that front. Now, there hasn't been any announcements or any talk of anyone as of yet, I suppose, with the club championship starting. But you know, as I mentioned last week, there's probably 5 or 6 guys there that are very close to, if near to maybe calling it a day after giving a lot of years of service. So, you know, they'll probably wait and see who the new man is as well.
Ciaran, all year you were calling Kilkenny as being one of the teams that was going to challenge this year, so you were on the money with that. In light of Brian Cody leaving, and you know what Richie's saying there about maybe a few players close to finishing up their careers, do you see Kilkenny at a bit of a juncture now where maybe they might go downhill a small bit next year, or what do you think?
No, I don't actually. And you know, Richie said it there a while ago. I suppose in the last 4 to 5 years, I suppose they're the one team that have been consistent in kind of putting it up to Limerick. And, you know, Richie gave the example of between 5 and 12, you know, out of those positions, we only kind of half won one. That in itself speaks volumes. You can go back to 2019, you know. So Kilkenny, you know, they're the one team, Shane, that I could see that were going to kind of push Limerick and possibly the coming season also, because I'm not convinced there's the rest of the counties out there. I think there's a few of them that are still struggling with the type of system Limerick are playing, you know, and it was interesting listening to Richie about Derek Lyng, you know, and there's a few right names in the hat there, whereas the manager is hugely important. Unless the coach is nailed on right and is up to scratch with the modern game, whatever manager you have, you're going to struggle. So I'd see the manager appointment being bang on and he's be, you know, 110% accurate, but his backroom team and his coach is going to be vital going forward.
Yeah, and how would you reflect on Cody's 24 years there, Ciaran?
Yeah, Shane, listen, I've watched him for a long, long time, and I have huge respect for the man. You know, he's a bit of a Joe Fagan or a bit of a Dalglish. You know, he put a lot of teams through his hand, and, you know, he made a lot of teams good. He lost a lot of players. He built a lot of teams. And I suppose I loved his philosophy, Shane. And, you know, he was the one manager for years. If he was asked a question, he'd answer it and he wouldn't dance around it. And his philosophy always was like a bit of honesty, a bit of genuineness, and love the jersey. You know, and he didn't change from that or shrek from that for all the years. And, you know, I can remember saying about 4 or 5 years ago, it's typical to Jay, you know, because he's done so much for the game. No different to Mick O'Dwyer down in Kerry. You know, they tend to kind of build an old statue and add time for these guys when they're dead and buried. you know, when these guys are still alive, they need to be honoured for, I suppose, what they've done for the game, what they've done individually for the sport. And, you know, for me, he's a giant of the game, an unbelievable manager. His track record is second to none. He owes Kilkenny nothing. And even now, while he's bound out, he's doing it in style.
And Richie, within Kilkenny, what's the mood about Cody now as people begin to reflect on what he achieved?
Actually, look, the mood, Shane, is, as I said, it's the end of an era, and it's probably, you know, the longer you go on with the same manager, people begin to wonder, will it ever happen? Like, or will he be there forever? You know, so as we all know, things don't last forever, and we probably knew that this day was coming at some stage. And I suppose to do it in the manner in which he done it, you know, I suppose typifies him as well. Like, you know, it was never kind of the centre of attention, never kind of, you know, I won't say he wasn't a big media man. Like, he obviously done his media obligations, but it wasn't a case, you know, he was in the paper the whole time and giving interviews. So he done it in the way that he wanted to do it. I believe he went away for a couple of days up the country, you know, after the announcement, to kind of get away from everything in Kilkenny. And I suppose, look, the people of Kilkenny will look back in years to come, and like, I'm sure I will in 10, 15 years as well, and realise the times that we had under Brian. And like, we're never going to see the likes of him again, and that's the reality of it. You know, you can, you know, you look at, I suppose, take John Kiley, for instance, winning 4 of the last 5, and probably, you know, that won't be the end. He'll probably be a couple of more in the bag as well, and like, he'll go down as one of the greatest as well, you know. But I suppose it's the longevity of Brian has made him probably, you know, how special he is. You know, like, he 24 seasons, 17 All-Irelands, I think, was it? You know, finals, 17 finals. I think there was only 3 years they didn't contest a semi-final or 2. You know, like, that's huge. Like, that's massive. And to give 24 years of your life, which is predominantly a full-time job, you know, to be fair, you know, because you're gone from your family when you're the manager, you're gone 4, maybe 5 nights a week. And, you know, that's a huge commitment. And, you know, he done it for the love of the game and the love of the jersey. And, you know, you have to take your hats off to him for that.
Okay, so we have plenty more to come on the show, but that'll be at patreon.com/OurGame. We're going to pick our all-star team of the year, talk about Michael Fennelly leaving Offaly, a bit of talk about the club in Limerick, and also in Kilkenny, the big one this weekend being Carrick Shock against Gore and Richie, obviously. And I also want to talk about the lads, just to see what they thought of David Clifford and Shane Walsh the other day, because that was incredible. So join us at patreon.com/OurGame. For more exclusive content, go to patreon.com/OurGame.